This world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards control. It rewards the cold, surgical precision of a mind unclouded by doubt. And while you, sitting there right now, are desperately trying to be good, trying to be safe, trying to manage every possible disaster in your head, someone colder is already planning how to use that fear, that hesitation, that essential goodness against you. I know you've stayed up at night, haven't you? Lying there, eyes wide open in the dark, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. Your mind is a catastrophic movie theater, playing hundreds of tragedies that never even happened, but which you've already felt, already survived, already been annihilated by. You call it worry. You call it caution. You tell yourself this relentless mental churning is a kind of armor, a shield that protects you from surprise. I'm here to tell you a brutal truth, a truth Machiavelli himself would recognize with a cold nod. Worry is not protection. It is a high-interest loan you pay to a disaster that never arrives. You are paying the ultimate price, your present peace and your future power, for an empty promise of safety. Machiavelli called it something else. He called it the quiet surrender of power. Think about that phrase. Surrender. You're giving up before the battle even begins. You're not being cautious, you are bleeding yourself dry. You are turning yourself into prey before the first predator even catches your scent. Because people can see it. They can see the internal defeat in the slight tremor of your voice when you speak. They see it in the restless, darting quality of your eyes. They see it in the forced, brittle smile you use to mask the chaos inside. They know. They know you've already lost the war inside your head. You don't even need an enemy to defeat you. You're doing the job perfectly well yourself. And in the great, silent game of power, that visibility, that internal turmoil, is the mark of someone destined to lose the moment a real challenge appears. Worry is a chain. It locks you in a prison of your own imagination. While you are locked inside, torturing yourself with what-ifs and should-I-haves, others, the cold ones, the actors, the decisive ones, are advancing step by silent step. They are claiming the territory you left behind, the power you forfeited. They sleep soundly, resting their energy for the real fight, while you spend your night exhausting yourself on ghosts. The greatest illusion you have bought into is the idea that the world rewards the good, the honest, the anxious. It doesn't. It rewards the one who controls the frame. It rewards the one who walks into a room and instantly, without a word, establishes the atmosphere. And you cannot do that if the atmosphere inside your own head is a hurricane of fear. Machiavelli, the original architect of cold reality, once wrote, "A wise ruler does not live in fear. He plants fear in others." Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't about becoming a tyrant. This is about becoming the kind of person who is so self-possessed, so internally tranquil, that your presence alone demands respect, rather than begging for it. If you want peace, if you want that inner stillness, you must stop trying to feel safe. You must stop waiting for the world to confirm your security. Instead, you need to master the darkness within you. You must stop letting your mind be ruled by the fictional disasters it conjures. This video is not about finding calm. Calm is for cowards who are simply running away from the sound of the fight. This is about becoming untouchable. It is about forging a mental armor so hard that no external threat, no criticism, no betrayal, no setback, can pierce your inner state. Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk a dark road, but it is the road to true sovereignty. We're going to uncover 6 Machiavellian laws, 6 cold blades forged to cut through the anxiety, the hesitation, and the crushing doubt that have been draining your life force. You're going to discover why the person who stops worrying isn't just surviving, they are winning. The hidden enemy silently controlling your life doesn't carry a sword. It doesn't scream in your face. It whispers. It seeps in slowly. It uses your own intelligence against you, turning your capacity for foresight into a tool for self-sabotage. Its name is worry. You've felt it, haven't you? That electric jolt at 3 a.m. lying in bed, eyes wide open, heart racing, and your mind is suddenly an aggressive playwright, crafting a dozen tragedies. A failed interview from 3 months ago. A casual comment from your spouse that you're now convinced is a sign of impending disaster. A collapsing financial future based on a single news headline. And when the sun rises, you are still intact. No disaster has occurred. Yet, you feel utterly exhausted, as if you fought 100 physical battles in your sleep. That is the destructive, insidious power of worry. It convinces you that by being miserable now, you are somehow protecting yourself later. But it's a lie. It weakens you. It drains your energy, steals your confidence, and exposes your weaknesses for the truly powerful to see. They don't even need to attack. Just by watching your trembling eyes, your uneasy posture, they know you're not in control. And in the game of power, that's the mark of someone who has already been defeated. Machiavelli understood that the true throne is the mind. If you let worry sit on that throne, you are no longer the ruler. You've become the puppet, and others, or even worse, just your own imagination, only need to pull the strings. Look at your everyday life. You wait for a text message from someone important. Your phone stays silent, and within 10 minutes, your mind has written a multi-volume story of betrayal, abandonment, and social ruin. You prepare for an important meeting, but instead of actually practicing your presentation, you spend the whole night imagining your own failure, your voice cracking, the audience sneering. You torment yourself while others sleep soundly, recharging their energy, planning their next actual move. You think you're being cautious, but in truth, you're just defeating yourself, over and over, in the privacy of your own mind. The brutal truth is this: worry is nothing but a chain. It locks you in a prison of imagination. And while you torture yourself, others advance step by step, claiming the power you left behind. Want to escape? Don't try to worry less. Don't beg for peace from the outside world. Do just one thing: recognize. Catch your mind in the act. The moment it starts creating a story, a narrative of disaster that hasn't happened yet, you must become the silent observer. You must ask a single ruthless question: is this real, or is this just an illusion in my head? The moment you ask that, the curtain falls. The ghost disappears. You see the trick, and you take your power back. A true leader never lets worry take the throne. He sits on it. He observes, he calculates, and he commands. He doesn't waste energy on nightmares that aren't real. He saves every drop of that sacred energy to prepare in silence and strike at the right moment. That's the difference between the ruled and the ruler. That is the first Machiavellian law, the foundational blade. Recognize, don't worry. Because worry is a performance, and the only audience is your own fear. The problem you're facing is a classic one, an ancient betrayal of the self. You are, in essence, the haunted king, sitting upon an empty throne. The palace of your mind is grand, filled with intelligence, ambition, and potential, but the throne, the seat of absolute authority, has been usurped. It hasn't been taken by an external enemy or a rival prince. It has been surrendered to a phantom. Let me introduce you to the subject of our focus, the audience's problem. That problem is you. Specifically, the version of you who believes that control is achieved through foreseeing disaster, rather than acting decisively. This is a person who has spent their entire life preparing to live, but has never truly stepped onto the battlefield. You're the general who knows every historical battle plan, but has never actually commanded a unit under fire. You are brilliant, you are sensitive, and you are tragically paralyzed. In the lore of the ruthless, Machiavelli saw this type everywhere in the courts of Italy. The nobles who would whisper of great deeds, whose libraries were stuffed with philosophy and strategy, but whose bodies grew soft, whose wills grew brittle. They were masters of conversation, but slaves to their own internal scripts. They confused complex thinking with effective action. They were waiting for the perfect, clean, guaranteed moment to move. And while they waited, the crude, the bold, the slightly foolish men, the ones who simply moved, took their land, their titles, and their power. The internal conflict is profound. You are fighting yourself with the very tools you should be using to fight the world. Your intelligence, the very thing that makes you capable of great things, is now the chain that binds you. Because your mind can create so many scenarios, it convinces you that you must find the one perfect path, the one move with zero risk. And since that path does not exist in the real world, you stand still. You think, and you think, and you think, until the opportunity slips away, until the problem solves itself in the worst possible way, until the moment passes and you are left only with the bitter taste of regret and the terrifying realization: I chose this stillness. This is how the throne becomes empty. When the true ruler, the part of you capable of cold, decisive action, abdicates, the court becomes chaotic. The whispers of "what if I fail?" and "everyone will judge me" grow louder. The guards, your rational mind, are busy chasing shadows, the 100 imaginary crises of the night. Meanwhile, the real threats, the subtle chances, the momentary weaknesses of your rivals, pass by completely unnoticed. The consequence is a life lived in constant, low-grade anxiety, a terrifying awareness that you are perpetually not enough. You're never fully present for your family, never fully focused on your work, never fully committed to your goals. You're always in transit, mentally, rehearsing a future disaster or replaying a past mistake. You are, in the Machiavellian sense, everywhere and nowhere. And this scattered existence is the clearest sign to everyone around you, to your enemies, to your rivals, and even to your own children, that you are not the one in command. Think of the energy you waste. Imagine a giant, powerful dam, holding back an infinite reservoir of potential. Worry and hesitation are tiny, constant leaks. They seem small, manageable, almost trivial. But over the months and years, they drain the reservoir to nothing. By the time a real crisis arrives, a true storm, a challenge that actually requires your full power, you are exhausted, empty, and unable to raise the necessary defense. You have already spent your reserves fighting phantoms. This is the psychological reality of the haunted king. He is terrified of conflict, yet he lives in constant internal warfare. He desires power, yet he constantly disarms himself with what-ifs. He craves peace, yet he manufactures chaos every night. Machiavelli would look at this state and offer a chilling assessment. The first necessity is to know yourself. And what he means is not knowing your feelings or your childhood wounds. He means knowing your mechanism of self-sabotage. He means seeing clearly the exact moment you trade action for analysis, presence for prediction, and power for comfort. Your problem is a reliance on the illusion of guaranteed safety. You are like a commander who refuses to march until the weather is perfect, the maps are flawless, and every enemy soldier has publicly promised not to fight back. That commander will simply rot in the barracks while the war rages on, and the world is carved up by others. The solution, therefore, is not more thinking. It's a radical shift in perspective. It's about taking the internal control back, one severe, cold-blooded decision at a time. It requires you to stop caring so much about being right, and to start caring only about being effective. You must accept that this world is fundamentally chaotic and unpredictable. And the Machiavellian mind understands that true strength is not in preventing the storm, but in building a ship that can withstand it. And the first plank in that ship is the conscious, brutal choice to stop worrying about what might happen and start focusing on what is happening right now. The moment you recognize that worry is not a tool of survival, but a weapon of self-destruction, the moment you see that anxiety is the enemy's silent scout, revealing your position, that's the instant you begin to reclaim the throne. We are not going to talk about meditation or positive thinking. That is weak man psychology. We're going to talk about a strategic, ruthless withdrawal of energy from the fictional future and a savage concentration of that power into the present. We are going to become the silent observer in the dark theater of your mind, the one who watches the disastrous play unfold and simply says, "This is not real. Shut it down." The goal is to move from the trembling figure in the corner, imagining the worst, to the calm figure at the center of the storm, whose stillness is the most terrifying thing in the room. This shift begins now, with the first cold blade of Machiavellian logic, the blade that cuts the cord to your phantom fears. Let's move from theory to execution. Let's reclaim that stolen energy. Let's move from the haunted king to the silent, observing ruler. You have just recognized the enemy, the thief on your throne, worry. Now we forge the first weapon to strike it down. This is not a philosophy, it's a surgical instrument. It is the core of the Machiavellian mind, adapted for the modern battlefield of anxiety. The first blade, recognize, don't worry. This law is about brutal mental triage. It's about separating the real threat from the imagined ghost. The tragedy of the intelligent person is that they are too good at creating scenarios. Your mind is so powerful that it can build a perfect, high-definition model of disaster, complete with dialogue, emotional pain, and social ruin. And then your body and spirit react to that model as if it were reality. You feel the adrenaline, the churning stomach, the hopelessness, all for a story existing only between your ears. Machiavelli would observe this and ask, why would a ruler pay homage to a fear that is not even standing at his gates? Let's look at the mechanism. You wait for an important email. It doesn't arrive. Instantaneously, your mind jumps to the narrative. They hate me. I'm fired. I messed up the deal. My reputation is ruined. Notice the speed. The leap from a simple fact, no email, to a complex, catastrophic narrative ruined life. Worry is simply uncontrolled storytelling. The power move is to insert a single, ruthless gap between the stimulus and the response. The instant the anxious thought arises, the scenario of humiliation, betrayal, or failure, you must execute the recognition drill. Step 1, the cold stop. Verbally, or internally, you command, stop. This is a shock to the system, an assertion of the conscious will over the primitive, fear-driven brain. Step 2. The brutal question. You ask the only question that matters. What evidence do I have for this thought right now? Not what evidence could there be, or what evidence might appear tomorrow, but what evidence do I possess in this exact moment? For the I'm fired scenario, the evidence is simply, the email hasn't arrived. That's it. There's no firing, no humiliation, no ruin. There is only an empty inbox. The narrative is instantly revealed as a fictional script. The difference between the overthinker and the strategist is this. The overthinker focuses all his energy on solving the fictional disaster. The strategist focuses all his energy on solving the present fact. The overthinker will spend the next hour spinning. Should I send a follow-up email? Is it too soon? Did I offend them with my last reply? They are fighting a ghost. They are wasting their most precious resource, focused attention, on a battle that isn't real. The strategist, the true Machiavellian, uses the recognition drill, sees the truth, the email hasn't arrived, and asks a different, colder question. What is the single most productive action I can take now that is independent of this fictional outcome? He might decide to simply work on the next project, or read a book, or go to the gym. He saves his energy, knowing that the actual problem, if it even materializes, will require all his strength. Worry, therefore, is not a strategy. It's a colossal misallocation of resources. And a ruler who misallocates his resources will inevitably fall to the one who conserves and concentrates his strength. Think of it like this. Your internal energy is a single, priceless gold coin. The worrier throws that coin at every shadow that moves, trying to pay off imaginary enemies. The Machiavellian puts that coin in a vault and only spends it when the real adversary, the one with a measurable, tangible threat, is standing right in front of him. This is the power of clarity. When you recognize the anxiety-driven narrative for what it is, a hollow drama, you automatically reclaim all the energy you were about to spend on it. That sudden, immense wave of reclaimed energy is the feeling of power returning to your command. The overthinker believes safety is achieved through predicting every outcome. Machiavelli knew better. Safety is achieved through internal clarity and external action. You will never predict every outcome. The world is chaos, but you can control your own reaction to that chaos. A true leader never lets worry take the throne. He sits on it. He observes, he calculates, and he commands. He doesn't waste energy on nightmares that aren't real. He saves every drop of it to prepare in silence and strike at the right moment. For example, a man is preparing to ask for a raise. The night before, his mind is a torture chamber. My boss will laugh. They'll tell me I'm not worth it. I might be demoted. He spends 4 hours rehearsing apologetic speeches and rationalizing staying silent. He's already lost. The Machiavellian mind applies the recognition drill. Is my boss laughing right now? Is the refusal happening in this moment? No. The only reality is the presentation notes on the table. He closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and focuses his energy not on defending against the refusal, but on perfecting the argument. He spends those 4 hours refining his data, strengthening his case, sharpening his delivery. He is preparing for reality, not for a phantom. That's the difference between the ruled and the ruler. The ruled are constantly exhausted by the future. The ruler is energized by the present. The subtle trap is that worry feels like work. It feels like you're doing something productive, that you're caring or being responsible. But in the game of ruthless effectiveness, feelings don't matter. Only results do. And the result of worry is paralysis. The result of recognition is unflinching focus. From this moment forward, every time the anxiety monster whispers a story of future doom, you will not argue with it. You will not try to calm it. You will simply point your cold, Machiavellian light at it and ask, is this happening now? The ghost can only exist in the shadow of your unexamined assumptions. Bring it into the light of the present, and it evaporates. This is not optimism. This is strategy. This is the first cold blade forged to cut through the chains of your own making. Recognize, don't worry. We have cleared the internal battlefield of phantom fears. Now we turn our gaze outward, to the world of rivals, provocateurs, and opportunities. This is where the truly weak betray themselves, and the Machiavellian ruler quietly claims the advantage. This is the second blade. Observe, don't react. There's a scene Machiavelli described, a scene that plays out daily in your office, your social circle, and your dinner table. The weak act like a cornered beast. Every sound makes them jump, every criticism makes them bark, every slight makes them show off a hollow strength. It is that very reaction, the instantaneous, uncontrolled reflex, that betrays them, revealing the exact location of their vital weakness. The wise are different. They observe. They stay silent. They let others boast, let others throw their clumsy emotional darts, let others drop their guard. And then at the right moment, they strike. But the strike is rarely a loud one. Often, the strike is simply the total absence of reaction, which is a weapon sharper than any counterattack. Think of Charles Darwin's strange story. When he stood before a thick glass cage containing a snake, even knowing the glass was impenetrable, he would still flinch when the snake lunged forward. His primitive body reacted, even though his rational mind knew the truth, he was safe. This shows you one thing. Human beings are born with the instinct of fear, and most of us spend our entire lives obeying that instinct. In the game of power, this is a fatal weakness. If you react through fear, through offense, or through immediate defense, you are no longer the decision-maker. You become a puppet controlled by a primitive brain that chooses for you. And in that instant, your opponent, the one who hides his reactions, takes the upper hand. Remember this cold truth: the first to react always loses. Imagine you hear a subtle, stinging criticism in a meeting. It's designed to provoke you, to test your control, to make you look small. If you snap back instantly, your voice rising, your justification lengthy, you have just revealed your weakness. You've shown the entire room that the words touched your real, vulnerable fear. You gave your opponent the high ground and the emotional win. But if you stay silent, your eyes steady, your face unreadable, simply observing, you make your opponent profoundly uneasy. He threw his knife, but it disappeared into the air. Your silence becomes a vacuum that sucks the energy out of his provocation. He is left exposed, looking like a desperate fool who attacked air. That stillness is your weapon. This is the art of observation, to let others believe they are in control while you are recording every movement, every word, every subtle tremble of their hand. They act rashly. You stay calm, motionless, like a wolf watching its prey walk willingly into the trap. Fear, if you let it lead, will turn you into someone living by a script written by others. A small headache, and you rush to Google your symptoms. Minutes later, you're convinced you're facing a catastrophic diagnosis. A rumor appears, and you scramble to explain yourself, defend your image, justify your actions to people who didn't even care until you validated the rumor with your panic. The more you react, the more control you lose. You become a slave to invisible ghosts and the opinions of others. Machiavelli would say, "Let fear exist, but don't bow to it. Observe it like you would a stranger. It appears, it screams, but you stand there calm, steady, staring it in the eye. The moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your power." Consider the dynamics of an argument. The person who screams the loudest, who uses the most dramatic language, is invariably the person who has lost control of the situation. Their volume is a frantic plea for power. The truly powerful person, however, lowers their voice, slows their speech, or best of all, simply waits. Their opponent exhausts themselves against the wall of that composure. They leave the interaction feeling drained and defeated, while the silent one remains energized and intact. Silence is the ultimate non-reactive power. Imagine a ruler before whom his courtiers whisper and spread rumors, planting seeds of doubt. If he rushes to explain, he admits weakness, he legitimizes the rumor. But if he sits still, eyes lowered, one hand resting on the arm of his chair, letting them talk until they exhaust themselves, his silence makes them tremble. They no longer know what he is thinking. They fear his composure. Observe. Don't react. It's not passivity. It is preparation for the decisive strike. Because those who observe see what others miss. A flickering glance, a trembling hand, a sentence spoken too long. In those small, almost invisible details, he reads the entire mind of his opponent. I once knew an old, successful entrepreneur, a man who built his empire on calm. During a massive negotiation, his rival kept provoking him, using harsh, personal language to force him into lowering the price. But the old man didn't react. He stayed silent, eyes indifferent, staring not at his rival, but at the reflection of the rival's panic in the polished wooden table. When the rival, thinking he had won, offered the lowest possible price, the old man simply looked up and said with a quiet, dismissive tone, "If that's what you truly want, I'll let you keep it." Then he stood up and walked away, slowly, without looking back. The rival, panicked by the unexpected, serene withdrawal, chased after him, begging him to return, and finally agreed to the original, much higher price. That is the power of observation and non-reaction. Others lose their calm, you don't. Others grow impatient, you stay still. And in that stillness, the balance of power tilts entirely toward you. You want to know who the world belongs to? Not the smartest, not the strongest, but the calmest. In calmness, he observes. In observation, he sees timing. And when the moment arrives, he acts decisively, unmoved by the meaninglessness of noise. Remember this. The ruled react. The ruler observes. Your composure is your fortress. There is something that kills more dreams than failure, more careers than incompetence, and more potential than bad luck: hesitation. It is a subtle kind of suffering, and it is the subject of our first great climax, the internal battle where the haunted king finally confronts his paralysis. This suffering doesn't come from poverty or loss. It comes from the endless spinning of your mind, imagining 1,000 possibilities and taking not a single step. That is the disease of the modern man, addicted to thinking, but starved of courage. You know that feeling, that churning knot of anxiety in your gut. You stare at the unsent email, reading and rewriting each line until your original surge of courage fades to a whisper. You have an idea, a project, a conversation waiting to begin, but you keep waiting. Waiting for tomorrow, waiting for a sign, waiting for the elusive, non-existent perfect moment. And while you wait, others act. They make mistakes, yes, but they move forward. They are foolish, perhaps, but they are living. You, despite your clarity, remain motionless. That is the tragedy of the intelligent, the sensitive, the over-prepared, knowing too much to dare to begin. Machiavelli saw this pattern in every court he advised. He once said, "A ruler never waits for perfection. He acts amidst chaos." Because he understood that this world doesn't reward the thinkers. It rewards the ones who act while others are still compiling their pro/con lists. Your internal struggle is a conversation you have with yourself every day, a conversation that is always rigged against action. The voice of hesitation whispers, "Wait. You haven't researched enough. What if this plan is flawed? What if you look foolish? What if you risk everything and only achieve mediocrity? Safety first. Just one more day of planning. Just one more hour of analysis. The perfect moment is just around the corner." The ghost of your potential screams, "Liar! You've been planning for 5 years. The perfect moment is a lie. It is a myth invented by those who fear failure more than a life of regret. The flaw in the plan is not the plan itself. The flaw is you standing still. Every second of inaction is a second you hand your crown to someone else. Don't you see? You are tormenting yourself with the fear of failure, but you are guaranteeing your defeat through hesitation. This is the paralyzing perfectionist's price. You are afraid to commit a mistake, so you commit the ultimate mistake, inaction. Machiavelli, with his cold, unromantic view of human nature, once declared, "A bad plan executed is stronger than 1,000 perfect plans kept in the mind." Why? Because the world doesn't revolve around what you think. It revolves around what you do. The moment of commitment, the first step, changes everything. It takes the idea from the realm of airy possibility and slams it into the hard, resistive face of reality. I knew a man gifted with the most extraordinary mind. He spoke of founding a non-profit that would revolutionize education. He spent 10 years studying legal structures, financial models, and philanthropic history. His plan was truly flawless, but he never sent the first grant application. He kept refining the mission statement, waiting for the perfect logo, the perfect team, the perfect 100% guarantee of success. And while he waited, a former colleague, a man half his intelligence but twice his nerve, started a similar, clumsy, imperfect nonprofit. The colleague made terrible mistakes, stumbled constantly, but he was moving. 5 years later, the flawed organization had momentum, donors, and impact. My brilliant, paralyzed friend was left with a flawless, dust-covered binder and the crushing realization that perfection was the greatest trap. You died the moment you began to think about it. The world belongs to those who act, not those who think. For in action there is truth. In thought, there are only ghosts. We live in an age of endless analysis. Everyone has opinions, theories, and complex models. Machiavelli would call that weakness disguised as intellect. People don't really want to understand more. They just want to delay the moment they must face the truth of their own incompetence or lack of nerve. They fear the first step because once they take it, there's no hiding left. You see it everywhere. The man afraid to confess his feelings because he can't stand the thought of rejection. The entrepreneur who won't start, fearing failure will damage his carefully curated image. The warrior who hesitates to draw his sword, imagining 100 ways to die. And the silent, cold judgment is this: delay has killed more empires than the sword. If you don't learn to move amidst uncertainty, you'll bury yourself in the grave of endless assumptions. This is the moment of choice. Are you the thinker, the planner, the forever rehearsing victim of your own complex mind? Or are you the decisive ruler, the one who knows that the only thing worse than making a mistake is making nothing at all? The next section will detail the shift, the move from paralyzing analysis to cold-blooded execution. It demands that you accept the one truth the perfectionist cannot bear. Failure is not the opposite of success, it is the fuel for it. Every mistake is a lesson paid for in real experience, an experience that 1,000 hours of thought never could buy. The overthinker will never understand this. They believe safety means control. But safety is an illusion. The Machiavellian moves through the fog, but with awareness. He doesn't need to know the whole future. He only needs to know the next step. This internal conflict, this battle between the safety of the mind and the risk of reality, must end now. And the only way to end it is not by winning the argument, but by walking out the door. The internal argument is over. The voice of hesitation has made its final, desperate plea for safety. Now is the pivot, the cold, silent moment where the true ruler emerges. This is the climax of decision, the decisive strikers. Act, don't overthink. Action is not recklessness. It is the art of those who rule. They think only enough to serve the next move. They calculate, they prepare, but when the moment comes, they do not hesitate. They know the world does not remember the thinkers. It remembers the ones who decide. Think about the feeling of that moment. That terrible, electrifying instant where the planning stops and the hand reaches for the switch. The young prince, paralyzed by analysis, asks Machiavelli, "Master, when is the right time to act?" Machiavelli smiled, a chilling, indifferent smile, and said nothing. He simply pointed out the window. Outside, a soldier stood in the rain, adjusting his armor, eyes fixed on the distance. "Do you see him?" Machiavelli said. "He doesn't know where the enemy is, or how the battle will unfold. But still he sharpens his sword. He understands that action does not wait for knowledge. Knowledge comes after, like the shadow of the one who moves. This is the central trauma of the indecisive mind. The belief that you must have a perfect map before you take the first step. The truth is, the map is the territory, and the only way to draw it is by walking. Every action you take is a forced lesson, a brutal feedback mechanism that is infinitely more valuable than 1,000 hours of sterile thought. Once a courtier asked Machiavelli, "Aren't you afraid of being wrong?" He replied with devastating simplicity, "If I'm wrong, I'll correct it. But if I do nothing, there will be nothing left to correct." That answer is the spirit of the third and fifth laws, forged together in the heat of commitment. Act, don't overthink, and live, don't rehearse. The person who acts is defining reality. The person who hesitates is waiting for reality to define him. When you send that email, make that call, or step onto that stage, you are announcing to the universe, and more importantly to your own nervous system, I am the sovereign here. I choose the consequences. Consider the difference between living and rehearsing. Modern people no longer rehearse how to wield a sword, but how to pose, how to speak, how to appear perfect. They edit every photo, every word, every reaction, as if they were performing a flawless role. They are training for a battle that will never happen, the battle for social approval, the battle against the internal critic. This over-rehearsal is a form of self-sabotage. You fear saying the wrong thing, so you rehearse every line. But when the real pressure hits, your rehearsed lines sound brittle, your composure cracks, and your hands tremble. Why? Because you practice to look like a general, but you have never lived as one. You have trained your mind to anticipate fear, thereby making the fear grow stronger. A man who truly lives doesn't rehearse for failure, he lives through it. He doesn't fake courage. He trains it by standing inside the situation, taking real risks, and bearing the real, often messy, consequences. There is a Machiavellian moment that changes you forever. The moment you realize that everything you fear exists only in your head. The world outside is colder, yes, but simpler than you imagine. No one cares about your mistakes as much as you do. No one watches you as closely as you think. And 99% of the disasters you imagine never happen. Every morning, you have two choices. Keep playing the safe role, repeating the scripted tragedies of your mind. Or, you can step off the stage, tear up the script, and finally live. The one who rehearses seeks to be loved and approved. The one who lives seeks to be respected and effective. A real person might make mistakes, be misunderstood, or fall hard. But every scar he carries proves one thing: he existed. He acted. He dared to get his hands dirty. While the ones who keep rehearsing, they die while still performing. Your breakthrough happens when you decide to let action lead emotion. Don't wait to feel ready. You never will. The courage does not precede the action. The courage is created by the action. Send that email. Make that terrifying phone call. Start the project you fear most. Do the thing that makes your heart race. Because in the end, the world won't ask how much you've thought. It will ask what you've done. No one remembers the man who stood outside the palace gates, perfectly planning his entrance. History remembers the one who dared to knock. That is the power of the decisive strike. That is the moment you reclaim your sovereign right to define your own reality. You have learned to act. You have learned to strike. But action alone is brute force, and brute force is easily outmaneuvered. The truly terrifying power, the one that creates the ultimate reversal of fortune, is not found in the external world. It is found in the deep, unshakable core of the self. This is the final, most crucial twist, the unconquered fortress of tranquility. There exists a kind of power that needs no sword, no crown, and yet makes the world bow in silence: tranquility. Machiavelli understood this better than any general. He once said, "The truly dangerous man is not the one who shouts, but the one who stays silent in the storm. Because in that silence, he is not controlled by the world. He controls it." In the Palace of Florence, amidst conspiracies, midnight executions, and the ceaseless drama of human treachery, Machiavelli would often sit alone writing. He had seen the mightiest men, kings, generals, merchant princes, tremble and collapse, not because of their external enemies, but because they couldn't stay calm before their own fear. Kings lost their thrones, not to rival kingdoms, but to the chaos within their own minds. When a man loses his calm, he loses his entire kingdom. Not the land outside, but the territory within. This is the reversal. You thought the game was about dominating others. Machiavelli's final lesson is that the game is about unruling yourself. Machiavelli once wrote, "If you cannot rule yourself, you will be ruled by everything else." That's why tranquility is the ultimate weapon, one no enemy can steal, one that reverses the dynamic of every confrontation. Picture a general. The battle erupts. Death reports flood in. Cannons roar. Soldiers panic. Yet he sits there, eyes still as stone, not because he feels no fear, fear is human, but because he knows panic is a choice. And while others are moved by emotion, he controls his breath, his gaze, his command. That cold steadiness earns the unwavering trust of his men and the profound, destabilizing fear of his enemies. The weak believe peace comes from outside, from financial stability, social approval, or a safe environment. They are constantly chasing external factors. But Machiavelli knew peace is not a reward. It is a discipline forged in solitude when you must stand upright in the storm with no one coming to save you. Modern life is designed to drown you in noise. You wake up and reach for your phone, scattering your focus before your feet even hit the floor. You eat with family, but your mind is elsewhere. You think busyness means living, but it's only how you escape silence, because in silence, you'd have to face the unexamined chaos inside. Machiavelli never feared silence. He used it as a chamber to sharpen his mind. When the world grew chaotic, he withdrew, not to hide, but to observe from above, like a chess player standing over the board, watching others fight for a single square while he sees the whole map. The fourth law, be present, don't scatter. This is the operational side of tranquility. Every time you lose focus, to a past slight, a future fear, or endless scrolling, you give a piece of your energy away. The Machiavellian ruler focuses all his power into the single point of the present moment. His gaze is direct. His movements are deliberate. His attention is a sword's point. When you are truly present, you don't just exist. You see through the masks of the world. You see the deceitful glance, the false smile, the tiny cracks in the opponent's posture. The true twist is that when you master the inner world, you become impervious to the manipulation of others. When someone insults you, you don't respond. Not because you're weak, but because you know reaction is the prize for the manipulator. When life throws stones, you don't throw them back. You build walls with them. That is the difference between those who are led and those who lead. An old Machiavellian tale says, a king was betrayed. The court erupted in panic. They expected rage, screaming, and executions. But the king merely smiled. For 3 days, he spoke no word. He issued no orders. He moved with a glacial, unreadable calm. 3 days later, the traitors were dead. Not by the sword, but by the cold silence of his command. No one knew how he did it. They only knew that his composure had terrified the entire court into betraying their own weaknesses. Tranquility is not weakness. It is the highest form of inner power. It frees you from the need to win every small battle, because you already command the long war. In a world of impulsive people, the calm one becomes the threat. His composure disorients others. He doesn't move to their rhythm. He forces them to move to his. This is the ultimate, silent domination. You stop chasing peace as a prize, and you begin to build it within. You no longer need quiet surroundings or validation from others. You need only yourself, still and impenetrable like a fortress. The world may shake, but your foundation stays unbroken. Observe water, soft but unstoppable. Tranquility is the same. The angry strike against it and dissolve in their own fury. The wise use it as a mirror, reflecting and absorbing the energy of others without being moved. When you reach this state, you no longer need to win. You become the victory itself. This is the heart of the final law. Master your inner world. Seek tranquility. Because in a world where everyone tries to prove their strength by shouting, the only one who can't be defeated is the one who no longer needs to prove it. You have just walked through the 6 doors of silent power. You have completed the journey from the paralyzed observer to the decisive ruler. This is not the conclusion of a story. It is the beginning of a new era within you, the final, most crucial shift in identity. The fear has been stripped away, and what remains is pure, cold sovereignty. You now possess the final, high-value lessons of the Machiavellian mind. Principles not made for the faint-hearted, but for those brave enough to stare into their own darkness and extract power from it. Let us seal these truths into your core. Law 1. Recognize, don't worry. You've learned that worry is a colossal misallocation of resources, a high-interest loan you pay to a disaster that is not even standing at your gates. The power move is to simply ask, is this happening now? The answer, invariably, is no, and the ghost of fear evaporates, leaving your energy intact. Law 2. Observe, don't react. You've mastered the art of stillness. You understand that the first to lose calm is always the first to lose power. When provoked, when tested, your response is not an angry retort, but a chilling, unreadable silence. Your composure is a fortress, and your non-reaction is a weapon sharper than any verbal counterattack. The ruled react, the ruler observes. Law 3. Act, don't overthink. You've stepped out of the prison of paralysis. You now know that a bad plan executed is infinitely stronger than 1,000 perfect plans kept in the mind. The world does not reward the thinkers, it rewards the decisive. You now possess the courage to walk through the fog, knowing the map can only be drawn by the one who moves. Law 4. Be present, don't scatter. You've sealed the leaks. You understand that focus is power. Every time you allow your mind to drift to past regrets or future fears, you are scattering your energy, giving away pieces of your authority. In a world of perpetual noise and distraction, the calm, present one becomes the silent center of every room, and others are forced to move to your rhythm. Law 5. Live, don't rehearse. You've embraced the messy, imperfect reality of existence. You know that pretending to be strong is the fastest way to become weak. You stopped rehearsing perfect answers and started living through real consequences. Your scars are not signs of defeat. They are proof that you existed and acted while others stood on the sidelines, waiting for a safety that never arrives. Law 6. Master your inner world. Seek tranquility. This is the ultimate, silent domination. The final reversal. The truly unconquerable person is not the one who defeats others, but the one who can no longer be ruled by the chaos within. Your tranquility is your final fortress, an unshakable foundation that allows you to control the atmosphere of any room, any negotiation, any crisis. From this moment on, remember the code of the ruler. You do not need to be understood. You do not need applause. You only need to stand upright in the storm, in silence, until the world itself feels that you have changed. Because when a person truly awakens, when they internalize this iron-cold philosophy, they do not speak of power. They become power. They walk into a room, and the noise disappears on its own, not because they commanded silence, but because their presence makes chaos irrelevant. This world is cold. This world rewards control. And the most dangerous man in it is the one who has absolute control over his own mind, his own reactions, and his own silence. That man is now you. The final, chilling truth, the one that changes everything. You were never meant to be a subject in the kingdom of fear. You were born to rule. If what you heard today made your mind tremble for even a moment, if the truth of your own self-sabotage was finally laid bare, don't let this moment fade into the anxiety of tomorrow. Do the decisive thing right now. I challenge you to cement this vow. Write this in the comments below, and let it be the first action of your new reign. I do not need to control the world. I control myself. That is the vow of a Machiavellian mind. That is the moment you stop worrying and begin winning. Thank you for walking this entire journey with me. This is not the end. It is the beginning of your dominance. To continue forging this silent, unassailable power, make sure you subscribe to the Stoic philosophy right now. In our next video, we will dive deeper into the art of silent manipulation, the tactical use of darkness, and the mastery of calm domination. Don't miss it.
Thank you for watching this video here on the Stoic philosophy. If you found value in this, I invite you to explore more videos on the channel. There's so much more wisdom to uncover. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.